All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Let me mute something because I'm listening to a video right now that we're going to show, and it's okay. Perfect. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode. When it comes to panels, we have some interesting topics that we're going to be talking about today. That I think, at a first glance, might be a little different, but I think there's an overall theme that sort of connects a lot of these topics. So I'm looking forward to talking about it. But first of all, how's everyone doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Not doing too bad. Not doing too bad. Yeah. I'm excited for tonight. We sort of put this up together last minute because there was some sort of scheduling confusion that we had. But I think I'm excited. I think this is going to be a good show. I think we got a lot of cool different topics to talk about. So yeah, let's get into them. So the first topic I think I want to talk about is, we hear a lot about Eric Adams, right, in New York City. And I think it makes sense, right? Because Eric Adams is the mayor of a major city. And so whatever happens that I think in major city, it's sort of it's important because it permeates kind of to the whole country in terms of kind of where we are with different things, right? And I think in addition to that, Michelle Wu, people are starting to talk a little bit about Michelle Wu. And I think Michelle Wu is very interesting because unlike Eric Adams, who shamelessly is not afraid to just show how right-leaning he is and how authoritarian he is, right? Michelle Wu is somebody who ran a very really kind of appropriated a lot of leftist language, ran a very kind of progressive campaign, right? To the point where she, straight up said she wants cops out of schools, out of Boston public schools, right? She really has been pushing this idea of free public transportation, right? And she has gotten to her credit, there's been a couple of bus routes that she has gotten free, right? But I think there's a lot of other things that there's one thing that she's doing in particular that I think is really interesting is that she is taxing small businesses in the North End. And I think real quickly, I want to make it clear. I think the position that I'm coming from is based on principle, right? In terms of, but I think it's important when we look here. I'm just going to pull up real quickly what she campaigned on her campaign page, right? Particularly when it came to small businesses and what she had to say about them. Give me 1 second. Our policy agenda. Here we go. So, okay. So she mentions small businesses. She says small businesses are the backbone of Boston's economy, serving as cultural hubs in our neighborhood, economic engines for families across the city, and one of the most important ways to build wealth in our communities. As a former small business owner, Michelle has been standing up for entrepreneurs and breaking down barriers so locally owned businesses can thrive, starting with streamlining processes for small businesses, permitting and licensing, and reforming city contracting and procurement to align with our goals to close the racial wealth gap and support worker co-ops. Michelle will help build Boston's economic recovery to center local small businesses, their workforce, and the communities they serve. And this is where we get to what's happening right now in the North End. So the North End is, just to give you all sort of, who's watching, who don't live near Boston, it's primarily been historically an Italian neighborhood, right? And it's a very small and condensed neighborhood. There's 9,271 residents. For that, there's 77 restaurants within a third of a square mile, right? So I think it's safe to say that that economy in that small localized runs on restaurants, right? And so they, particularly during COVID, struggled a lot, right? Particularly because, you think about when everything shut down, where did people order from? They ordered takeout from restaurants near them, right? The North End has 1% of the population of Boston. not many people are going to be ordering food from them, right? Meaning that these restaurants definitely suffered a lot, right, when it came to their business, okay? And so now we're going to, the summer is coming and restaurants are going to start having outdoor dining, right? So originally, Michelle Wu decided to, just for the North End, give them a $7,500 fee to participate in outdoor dining. And potentially, if they had any parking spots that they wanted to seat anyone, it would be $458 per month in addition to that, right? So that obviously is causing, or as you maybe imagine, is causing a lot of these businesses in the North End, these restaurant owners, to be unhappy about this, right? And to the point where they come to, they actually tried to come to her press conference to talk about it. And this is what happened. And I'm just going to show the tweet and I'm going to show the video itself. Okay. So this is what Wu says. Let's be clear. We will not normalize harassment as acceptable behavior. When members of this group have taken part in the yelling outside my house, bullied city staff, and fellow restaurant owners, there is no right to get inside and shout down a press conference too. And so this is the video that she basically is talking about, and we can decide for ourselves. We'll just play it, and we'll get people's reactions of this.
I'm not in charge of the list. The North End liaison invited.
We would like to listen in. No liaison reached out to me. Okay, hey, Johnny, how come you're not on the list?
Hey guys, so we only have so much room.
Why don't we pick a bigger room? The bigger room
There's so much room for us to be able to do
there's
it.
bigger
So
rooms
if
in
you weren't
the
on this to begin with, unfortunately.
So you elected the people that are in your favor, John. John, that's what you did, John. John, you're selling out the neighborhood, buddy. And this is illegal. We are members of this community and we want to take part, okay? So pick up a bigger room, let's find a bigger room and let's be able to all listen in. You have the people who are on your side, we have the people who are on our side. We like to meet with the mayor, we like to do it in a polite fashion, but she needs a bigger room. She picked a small room only for friends and family. We have friends and we have family, and we like to hear what she has to say. The people that you elected to join you do not represent us. Nikki Brown doesn't represent us, Pataroli doesn't represent us. We represent ourselves, and we like to be heard. Okay, and we like to partake. She cannot have a neighborhood meeting about the businesses without including the businesses. We are the businesses, and we would like to be included. Okay, and this is a tyranny what she's doing. And she's doing it behind our backs, and we would like to be heard. Please, it's that simple. Who made the list? How come the business? No, if this is about the business owners of the North End, there's a lot of people there who are not business owners, okay, including you, all right, Benetti, D'Amico, okay, we are business owners who would like to be heard. Okay, that's all we're asking for. And if not heard, we at least like to listen. And she picked the smallest place in the building to have a meeting because she doesn't want us there, and we want to be there, and the media wants us to be there. So we have voices. We have plenty of mothers in our group that are suffering because of the decisions that she's making for our businesses. We have plenty of employees who have families who are suffering from her mandate on us only 100 businesses that you help, an Italian member of our community, okay? And we would like to at least peacefully listen to what she has to say. She has no right. Listen, this, folks, is not democracy, okay? This is not democracy, okay? Democracy includes everyone, all of us. This is not democracy, okay? This is not
All right, so we get the point there. Before I kind of hand it off I want to kind of get different takes and reactions to this. I will just say, I consider these people comrades, right? They're business owners, and if they're underpaying their labor, I will support their labor to go out for them, right? For me, it's more of the principle of sort of what is being explained here. But yeah, I want to let's start with Z. I want to kind of hear kind of your reaction to sort of that video and what has been kind of talked to so far.
Yeah, so I think we saw a lot of passionate language, and I think that he was right, and I think that they were right to come down there, and especially when the mayor did say that she was going to be holding a meeting that included everybody, including the small businesses, and then leaves them out, and then holds a meeting when they don't know. she thinks they didn't know in a tiny room without them. So that just seems like the usual, progressive Democrat. A progressive Democrat is still a Democrat. So. You're muted.
Sorry, ADC, what do you got?
So Z is absolutely correct. Yeah, there's a lot of it smells bad. We'll just leave it at that. I mean, I'm sure the restaurants were kept out of the dark on purpose. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know, in any of my experience doing media or working with government officials, if they have some sort of major plan or something they want the public to see, they will get the biggest event center, rent pomp and circumstance for out. When they don't want you to see it, that's when they go and get some limited seated facility to ensure that only the privileged select few can be there. So yeah, 100% the owner there is bang on in his disagreement with how they were treated.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I see this, right, and I see someone like Michelle Wu, who, like I said, ran a pretty left campaign, right, and used a lot of bold language, was very aggressive in a good way when it came to climate change, right? Talked about having a local Green New Deal, right? Everybody knows her, at least is painting this image as this like far left person, right? Whether that's true or not, right? And I see sort of specifically the people in the North End who they're the only ones that have to pay that tax, right? And the reason why they're saying that they have to pay it is because the roads are very small there, which is true, right? But that's due to Boston infrastructure, something they're not responsible for, something they did not have anything to do with, that they are paying a price for, right? And I see that and I think, okay, there's already, due to conservatives have already successfully propagandized and been like, leftists tax you terribly, right? And that's how they use it, right? And now someone like Wu is actually taxing a small business like that, small businesses that have been struggling from the pandemic. And I think to myself, how is this going to bring anybody over to the left that we're trying to bring over to the left, right? And so I feel like this is just, this is how it sometimes really harms left movements, when you have these left-facing figures who are then running on these bold things, but then what they actually do is they end up just taxing these small businesses. I don't know, Austin, what do you think in regards to that?
Yeah, I was trying to just, for the first thing, to figure out why the hell are they doing this? And yeah, it looks like exactly as my Bostonian friend here, Andrew, described, poor infrastructure and design. And I did the math, hashtag or #/R. I did the math. It's $500,000, if everybody, those restaurants paid the full tax, full fee, it'd be $577,000, which is not. And they also said that they're doing it. They're going to reinvest that in that area. So it looks, it's born under a bad moon, I guess. Those business owners that just happen to be there need to now pay for the initial terrible decisions that elected officials made. But I mean, it's something along with that. You're talking about like hijacking, more left political policies. Well, I was looking at Michelle Wu's bio, and a couple cool things popped out. One is like Ayanna Pressley was before her in that position, not as mayor, but as a councilwoman. And that she basically in 2009, 2010, She became a protege of Warren, Elizabeth Warren, no, she's still a cunt. I was going to say former cunt, but anyway,
we can't be using that kind of language with our female comrades, and we've got to be a lot less crass about how we use our language with that kind of thing also.
Oh man, I will save it for another time. Then she's so she said she's a Warren protege, and I believe that she looks like somebody that could be prepared for a run for president. I don't know how y'all feel about that though.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I believe she was a student of Warren. And so, yeah, she is 100%, I think, trying to be primed to, run for president, or at least, let's just say mayor is not where she's going to stop. Right. And I think that's just something to consider. And, I think what irks me, and I want to kind of bring Ludin into this, because I think what really irks me was the fact that, this is direct action, right, that these people are taking, right, whether or not they're, and so so she is referring to this as harassment, right? And so, at least for me, it's the principle. It's like, it's sort of like when people maybe get censored on the internet, and it's like, I didn't like them, but they could come for me next, right? And so, I don't know, Ludin, what are your sort of thoughts on what I'm saying there? And overall, feel free to kind of overall go into it.
Well, it's a lot, but primarily, this is why a lot of leftists get disillusioned with, like, the Democrats, because on one hand, they preach, oh, we're for this, for that, and they, in some cases, like Mayor Wu, they actually do the right things, but then they try to be sneaky and, like, do underhanded things that, for example, holding meetings in small rooms when they were saying that, oh, we're going to have the business owners involved. And then the business owners come out and they're like, okay, what happened to our invite? And there are people who are like the guy in the video who's like, oh, yeah, she's only, like, having a small room because it's Randy. Like, no, you brought people, you said you were going to have people in the meeting, get the people in the meeting. And this ties into censorship, because not only are these people being silenced, they don't get media attention unless they make a big deal about it. And when they make a big deal about it, then they are painted as combative or harassing whoever is at the desk, which is, they're literally not harassing whoever that they're trying to make a demand. So that's where I stand with it. Yeah,
no, for sure. And, so I want to talk about that, going off of how they've been taking direct action. Let's just take this. So this is the Boston Herald. And so this article came out actually at 8:20 p.m. yesterday. And so now it's saying Wu, since then, has softened the city's stance on North End outdoor dining, allowing hardship exemptions to the neighborhood-specific $7,500 opt-in fee, though that did little to calm angry business owners who say they should be alone in having to pay. Right? Like we said, they're the only neighborhood who has to pay. Wu, in a press conference in City Hall, told reporters that the city will create these hardship exemptions for restaurants in order to get the fee down from the initially proposed $7,500 to $5,000 to $3,500 in a tiered system based on several factors, including whether the place has a liquor license, whether it's on a side street, and how big the patio is. She maintained the fee, which, as the Herald first reported, the city rolled out to restaurant owners 2 weeks ago, is necessary because outdoor dining in the tight alley-less neighborhood is more difficult for the city and residents than it is in other parts of town, right? So I wanted to bring that up just because I feel that, the interesting thing is, although she dismissed it as harassment, concessions were made, right? And so in some interesting way, even though they're still being charged, right? Now it's a tiered system, right? Which is a little better than what it was there. So in some ways, it's almost showing that like what they did has kind of worked, right? And it shows that direct action can, make some concessions and steps over, right? So yeah, welcome, Guy. Definitely like and subscribe if you haven't already. We are happy to have you watching. But yeah, anybody else sort of wanna, I'll leave it to the floor. Anyone else have anything else they want to kind of say on this topic and such before we move on?
I just wanted to say that she's more than likely, as people are usually handpicked on both sides, and that person wouldn't have gotten the spotlight or been propped up by the Democratic Party, or they wouldn't have coalesced if she didn't pose if she posed a threat. Even with India Walton, how hard did the establishment go after her? And she was just trying to become a mayor. The establishment went hard against her. So, in my opinion, she wouldn't even have Democrats be able to get behind her if she didn't already make concessions that were going to throw the people under the bus in the first place.
And I think, I'll let someone else talk. I just want to kind of just respond to that. I think that also kind of talks a little bit about just another case study on electoral politics, right? Here's somebody, you look at her page, right? I even just showed a little bit of the page, right? She talks about how she is a small business owner, right? She's going to be helping like small businesses, right? And then she does this, right? And so I think it's a perfect case study where I think it's always good to go back on a candidate's campaign pages, see what it was that they talked about, see what it was they promoted, and then look at what they're doing in reality, and then say, you know what? Maybe I'm not gonna try too hard to campaign for them, or campaign for them at all, or give any money to them, because even though they're saying the right things, if especially like Z saying, if they're getting propped up this much, in the end, they're going to be doing the same kind of neoliberal policies that, in the end, tax big businesses, right? These people, I'm going to say, probably make a decent living, right? But they're not oligarchs, right? It's not like she's taxing at Applebee's, right? Tax away those Applebee's, right? I don't give a shit. But these are independent businesses who have been struggling due to COVID because no one has been, their takeout has been struggling. And here she is, 7,500 for a few, like that's a decent amount. So yeah, I don't know.
So look at it. I mean, number one, I look at that BS thing about, it's difficult for us to go to restaurants without alleyways. Who gives a crap about that? Honestly, if a restaurant's good, you're going to go to it. You can tell straight up that these restaurants aren't famous. They don't have, tell me if Tiffany Faison, who is on Tournament of Champions on Food Network right now, if her restaurant was involved in this, if this shit wouldn't hit national media. But no, because you're going after the small guy, you're going after these Italian business owners. These restaurants have probably been families for generations that have probably the best food in freaking Boston, but there's no cachet, there's no clout attached to them. So then they're just shuffled aside because, shit, you guys aren't worth anything because you're not going to up my voting, or you're not going to up my premise here.
And this is how you get people to go right? Because that opens up a scenario for a candidate who's much more right-leaning, much more pro-cop, probably, much more, just come in and basically say, I won't tax you. And they're going to vote for them because what they just experienced under a quote-unquote leftist mayor, they were like, all I know is I don't have to pay that BS 7,500 fee on top of that, parking, the fee for setting up shop on parking spots, right? And so I think it's just a perfect example of how neoliberal policies create, these us to go back further right, which is not good for anyone.
Yeah, and it looks like it's just because somebody can't drive through that neighborhood is what that looks like. So some asshole who can't drive through the neighborhood got the hold of somebody's ear who got the hold of the mayor's ear. and now them folks got to pay for widening the road. Yeah, it's a crock of horse shit, but hey, direct action works.
Absolutely. And I think that's something because like I said, they're not leftists, but I think as leftists, that's something we can take away, right? Is that direct action works. Clearly, Michelle Wu hates direct action. And so no thank you to Michelle Wu, right? I'll tip my cap to her if she does things that are good, right? She has made a couple of bus routes that go through primarily Black and brown communities free, right? Which is definitely beneficial, particularly for people who are trying to get to work and don't need to pay to get to work, right? So I will give her credit for that. However, this to me just looks unacceptable. And I think her reaction to people who simply just want to come into the news conference to express their dissatisfaction of it. No, you can't be saying that's harassment. I mean, maybe there's other things individuals have done that's harassment, but that video itself was very reasonable.
She posted like the evidence of like them not being. I was expecting, especially this day and age, some kind of like rowdiness, but literally it was just like a group of people who they were getting pumped, but it wasn't like them going crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know. I looked at the guy in the back there with the chains. He looked like one of those mobster business owners. So maybe if he was doing something a little more intense, it might have gotten out of hand. But they seem to have him just as the muscle in the back.
Yeah, this is the quiet guy in the back, and yeah, it was just. But yeah, her posting that's funny because it's like I was harassed and attacked, and then you just look at it, and you're like, this is actually very tame for 2022.
Yeah. Like, please let us through. We want to just respectfully express.
We want to be part of this. It's like, oh my god, you want to be part of this?
Stop harassing me.
Oh my goodness.
But there's one thing I want to add is that all the progressive Democrats are like, oh, direct action, and then next thing you know, direct action is aimed at them, and all of a sudden they don't like it.
Yeah.
Exactly. So once they're in power, then all of a sudden they're like, my pearls! Please just let me be in my tower and not let me talk to you. The pearl
clutching is real.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was wondering, y'all, like, I was watching something, there's all kinds of performance art out there. Is shitting in front of a politician, is that considered sculpting? Could we consider that sculpting? You drop trowel and just said, this is what I think about your policies, and did a little sculpture. No, I don't know. I'm trying to figure art out.
Yeah,
it is Boston, so it could be considered interpretive.
Ask the French.
So, yeah. So, talking about censorship, this is probably a good time to transition over to Z's topic there, with a lot of censorship that's been going on. So, Z, feel free to take it away.
All right. Well, yeah. So recently, in the last past 4 weeks, we've seen like a ramping up of censorship, predominantly on anything Russian, since the Ukraine-Russian scenario is happening. And we're not going to go over any of that because there's enough places covering that right now. But in particular, Russia Today America, RT, we know as RT America, has shut their doors completely for the end of time forever. So we have people like Chris Hedges in particular, who are going to be going over, Lee Camp, Jesse Ventura, Phil Donahue, Rachel Blevins, and tons of other people who generally were, and not everybody at RT was anti-imperialist, but those voices in particular were, and they were the only, pretty much the only slew of anti-imperialist voices on American television that you could go to and actually consistently see people being like, no war, and no talking points given from the CIA or directly from the Pentagon to our corporate state-controlled media. Now, Chris Hedges in particular, he did his show on Contact, which is about he would just talk to random authors and about their work. from anything from anti-imperialism to police brutality, anything, even art. He had cartoonists on before who did anti-imperial art. It was just anything. In particular, the strange thing about him being taken off, though, is the fact that he didn't ever mention Russia, and when he did mention Russia, he was very critical of them, and he even classified the invasion as the preemptive strike as a act of war. And so he even, as we're going to see, he even said that if RT America had continued, he would have been kicked off, because he said that the Moscow would not allowed that. But America got to it first and made them shut down. So he has a new article out that came out a couple days ago called "On Being Disappeared," and I'm going to share that.
What a comforting title.
Yeah, it is a very comforting title. And the picture's even more comforting when we get to it. Can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So it's called On Being Disappeared. And in this article, he goes over the fact that he hosted an Emmy-nominated show that he hosted for 6 years on RT America, which I had no idea that was nominated for an Emmy. That's pretty cool. Yeah. You know, he had anybody, he talked about James Joyce, Ulysses. And in this article, he's pretty much pointing out the things he talked about and who he had on, and how it was just gone in the blink of an eye, and how crazy it is that you can just be in this day and age with the technological dictatorship that's going on, the technopoly, that we're having people who can just be disappeared and overnight. You can wake up and your whole life's gone because it's digitally archived and everything. Everyone lives on social media. So in particular, what I want to go to is I want to go to him talking about his being in a totalitarian state. And what he talks about is the fact, are we more informed and better society because of the censorship? This is a world we want to inhabit, where those who know everything about us and we know nothing about can instantly erase us. If this happens to me, it can happen to you, to any critic anywhere who challenges the dominant narrative. And that is where we are headed, as the ruling elites refuse to respond to the disenfranchisement and suffering of the working class, opting not for social and political change or the curbing of rapacious power and obscene wealth of our oligarchic rulers, but instead imposing iron control over information, as if that will solve the mounting social unrest and vast political and social divides. Now, before we go on, because he starts talking about, like, you know, how the double speak with liberals, how they'll, you know, sit there and talk about how Donald Trump is being a dictator, but then when Biden gets in and starts taking away information and starts actually like ramping up the information war in the way he is. So before we get on a little bit further, I want to pass it on. So yeah, he's talking about the fact that instead of responding to the people with, you know, economic relief, like we saw a couple years ago, as in these economic relief, like the eviction moratorium, the student just erasing student debt, he could cancel the moratorium. He could cancel the debt for homes too as well. And instead, we're getting a food shortage, and we're getting raised gas prices, and the pain of normal people is increasing instead of depleting. And we're living in the threat of a possible nuclear war. So, and instead of, you know, trying to ease the tensions and help the people and then actually go out and negotiate peace, we're ramping it up. And that, from my point of view, I think he's completely correct about that, and I think that he's right. If it can happen to him, it can happen to anybody. And he actually has, you know, he's out in the world. People know who he is, so it's kind of like I want to get everyone else's thoughts on that. And let's start with Ludin. What do you think?
You're muted.
There you go. Thank you. I definitely agree that there's definitely some really nefarious stuff when it comes to censorship, because again, like, you could ruin anybody's life by just deleting their work. Let's see, like, I've actually experienced something similar. Well, I was in high school at the time, so it wasn't like soul crushing, but I used to have a YouTube channel back then, and a lot of those videos I edited myself, and it took hours to do so. And then all of a sudden, because of something that I uploaded, that this the algorithm deemed as unsafe or whatever, they deleted all of my videos and just deleted the entire channel. So I have no access to any of that work. So yeah, if somebody actually makes a living and makes their earnings from those videos, then what are they supposed to like fall back on?
I have a story like that, kind of. Not it doesn't recall me actually physically working, but I will say when I was in 4th grade, we were going to Charleston. And I had my Pokemon game, and like you can only have one game on the Pokemon game, and if anyone else starts a new game, all your data is erased. So my friend had finally traded me a Mew, one of the most powerful, like the most rare Pokemon in the game besides like Mewtwo. Yeah, and so this girl's like, can I play your Game Boy? And I was like, oh sure, and I'll let her play. And when I got it back, she had started a new game. I was in 4th grade, so that was the most devastating. That was like an act of war, I guess, when I was like being in 4th grade. So, but yeah, Austin, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it feels like it's 1979 all over again. Like we're gonna add some nuclear fallout drills and all that good stuff. Just bring it all the 80s nostalgia back. Top Gun 2's coming in, but it's bound to get worse. There's not how many outlets are available to folks, right? There's Facebook, there's YouTube, there's a handful of other ones, but it's the difference between local news and like national news as far as like what audience, right? And this has already happened to me, just in a manner, just like Luden on Twitter a couple of times. I don't know about y'all, but I've been sorted a few times on there. Hell, but the question is, how do we combat this? Yeah. We could probably look back to our last segment, direct action, right? But how do you're bound to the mechanism with which you're trying to leverage true information with, right? Our ecosystem is limited. Has any of y'all, I know there's Gab, but have any of y'all heard status on any social media apps that might not do this?
Well, right now we have Mastodon, we have Panquake going on. Odyssey is also decentralized, but we have to get, when your channel, we have to get a certain amount of subscribers to start getting their really start getting their currency and whatnot. But there's a lot of decentralized platforms that are starting to pop up because they see the dangers of what's going on with the centralization, especially centralization in the hands of totalitarian technopolists. That's like a crazy word.
Totalitarian technopolists, techno-feudalists.
But before I go, because I want to show there's a video I want to show, Matt Taibbi's video. But what I didn't want to mention is one of the things that Chris Hedges does talk about, in the fact that, and Abby Martin actually talks about this too. She's been doing her round since her show as well. Breaking the Set got all 600 episodes of her. All 600 episodes of her show got erased, which is terrible. However, she was able to. Her mom actually recorded all of it, so yeah, because she was just being a good mom,
Yeah.
And she was just like, my baby, and then it came in handy.
That's what's up.
Now, Chris Hedges does. I don't know if anyone remembers, but there's a 2017 D&I report, the Director of National Intelligence report from James Clapper. He was Trump's. He was the top. He was the head of that in Trump's regime, and he released a report about Russian interference and the supposed Russian interference and how they installed Trump and all that good stuff. But in it, there's about 7 pages, and I'm going to actually bring this up. There's about 7 pages on RT, which is it's crazy. There's actually, and it does not mention anything about the as far as like being what they're doing as in Russian intelligence. It really has an issue with the fact that they're platforming third parties, they're platforming Black Lives Matter activists, they're platforming anti-imperialists, and that was the issue. So really, what we're looking at is a saying that something's fake news or misinformation in the guise of, because we have Democrats who say misinformation, you have Republicans who say fake news, but they're essentially the same thing, and you have essentially, this is the guys in a blanket to just go after alternative media and voices that did not fit the political and corporate narrative. So I'm going to show this right here. Oh, can y'all see that? Uh-oh. What is going on here? All
right, talking about censorship.
1 second. Let me see if I can get this back up, because that's not happening on my side. Wow, I might have to just link this, because they're Let me see, share screen.
That was interesting,
wasn't it though?
My eyes.
So while you're doing that, Z, actually the point on go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just saying, here we go.
Oh, so the point with Chris Hedges, like one of the most the scariest parts right now, not only is it YouTube, but because YouTube is owned by Google, you can't even search Chris Hedges. So if you search Chris Hedges, you are finding very limited amount of material that he did. I actually had to go on to a couple of the audio apps that I use to find articles that he did, and TuneIn Radio had a couple of his stuff that he did it was actually on the app for a couple of the community radio stations in Los Angeles. But trying to find him and find any information or any of his other than interviews from years ago regarding some of his book tours and stuff, you can't find any new stuff. Like Kyle, forgive me, I don't follow either one of them, but they had him on the show, and I listened to that interview and listened to him, didn't listen to them. But regardless, I mean, one of the biggest points that he made is the fact that this guy isn't just, I mean, we know that he's a highly qualified and highly award-winning journalist. I mean, he was the Middle Eastern correspondent for the New York Times.
Exactly.
He ran the Middle Eastern offices for the New York Times.
He's one of the few that speak Arabic.
And he wouldn't quit speaking truth to power, so they basically muted him and eliminated him. And that's when he went to RT, and that's when he went to do all these things. And it's just ridiculous, the fact that someone who speaks that truth, and it's not Russian, like you said, that the Russian piece, he's anti-Putin, very anti-imperialist. It's that whole truth of, who's got the power in the world? That's Israel, and that's Saudi Arabia, and that's the Clintons, and all this crap that when the prisons started, it was based on Clinton upping that, and then Obama was worse. And who's all connected to all those guys? Old Jim Crow Joe Biden himself. And that's why he's muted, and that's why there's censorship right now, because you got the president who's being pulled by puppet strings, because there's no way in hell this guy has any capability of running anything. It's basically Ronald Reagan counting jelly beans again, like it was in the 80s. And this is what we have for Biden. But his machine behind him is censoring anyone who speaks out against the establishment.
That's so true. And before I like get into this, I want to know if Andrew wanted to comment on anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when you all were talking about decentralizing, right? Platforms that are decentralized, it's great. We should be highlighting platforms that are decentralized. And I think we also need to recognize that at one point, YouTube was decentralized as well. And then Google bought it a year later. And here we are, right? It was funny. I was even joking with a bunch of you even before we came on here. I miss the days when you would just go on YouTube to watch like weird, creepy, funny videos that were just homemade. And, you know, there's some weird like porn that would be on YouTube as well. Like that's what you would just do. You'd be like, look at this, whoa, what's happening? Yeah. And now here we are, where just like everybody is getting censored on YouTube for just saying something that is just, you know, slightly off from what the mainstream discourse is. So I think part of the conversation is we need to be elevating decentralized platforms. We need to be figuring out how to keep them from ever becoming centralized in the first place, because once those decentralized platforms gain popularity and everyone goes up to them, you think big tech is going to just be like, oh, okay, we'll leave you alone. No, they're going to come in and co-opt those as well, right? And I think that always goes to the question where it's you know, antitrust legislation and trying to see how we can put those things forward. And, you know, it always kind of gets put in the back end, right? So I think in terms of direct action, part of the direct action needs to be bringing awareness to making sure politicians enforce this antitrust legislation so that nothing does become so powerful that they can just censor you and silence you, right? And that's something I honestly don't have the answers to right now, but I think as long as we keep talking about it, we could try and come up with some cohesive way to fight it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's correct. I think that they will just eventually, because eventually the fight's going to have to happen, regardless.
Yeah.
Like, and just jumping from platform to platform there's going to be a wall at some point. And you know, they're starting to go after Substack. But you know, there's been no like national calls. Just people have been starting to be like looking over to the next thing. What are they going to want to cancel? Because people get cancel hungry in these kind of times because the information is getting leaked. And speaking of information getting leaked, so this DNI report from Jason Clapper, not Jason Clapper, that guy's on CNN, James Clapper, James Clapper, Jace Justin or whatever his name is, Clapper has no nothing on this guy because this guy actually had power, not influence. But so this is from 2017. The Kremlin's principal international propaganda outlet, formerly Russia Today, has collaborated with WikiLeaks. RT's editor-in-chief visited WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy in London in August 2013, where they discussed renewing his broadcast contract with RT, according to Russian and Western media. Russian media subsequently announced that RT had become the only Russian media company to partner with WikiLeaks and to receive access to new leaks of secret information. RT routinely gives Assange sympathetic coverage and provides him a platform to denounce the United States. Now, when you think about like, this is from 2017. Another thing is the fact that they mentioned Sputnik in this. There's about 7 pages of like just all of these things that, you know, they'll be like the Trump thing, which has been proven that Russiagate was all a load of malarkey, as Joe Biden will say. And Russian media, they're just going after pro-Kremlin proxy. Vladimir Zhirinovsky, leader of the Nationalist Liberal Democratic Party, proclaimed just before the election if President Trump won, Russia would drink campaign in anticipation. That has nothing to do with, here we go. RT's coverage of Secretary Clinton, the U.S. presidential campaign, was consistently negative and focused on her elite emails and accused her of corruption, poor physical and mental health, and ties to Islamic extremism. Some Russian officials echoed Russian lines for the influence campaign that Secretary Clinton's election could lead to war between the United States and Russia. There's a lot. There's like about 7 pages in this about RT. And they talk about how, you know, RT focuses on like and here's Abby Martin. RT introduced 2 new shows, Breaking the Set and Truth Seeker on November 2nd. Both overwhelmingly focus on criticism of U.S. and Western governments, as well as promotion of radical discontent. This has nothing to this is all just a blanket sheet to go after any kind of anti-imperial voice or any voice that is critical of any of the Western countries, and in particular the United States of America. So that being said, I wanted to share a video about with Chris Hedges is talking about we were talking about his life a little bit, but it goes into that, and it just talks. It's with Matt Taibbi. We don't have to watch the whole thing, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the DNI report in the comments, and everyone can go have what they will. It's pretty long. There's like 25 pages, but this is directly from the from DNI.gov. This is government information. This is public. This isn't just like some conspiracy theory. This is actually happening. So, the sanctions did happen overnight, yes, but I would say aggression and the mission was not concocted overnight. They knew exactly who they were going to go for when they were going to start censoring anything Russian. They already had the information. Biden is just carrying on the hawkishness of Trump. While the only thing about it is the media is not constantly being like he's colluding with Russia, because Trump did get hawkish on Russia too. He put sanctions on Russia. The only person who wasn't as hawkish as those two was Obama, and he still was hawkish with Putin in Russia.
And some with all this is that like Clinton, she dropped the ball. It ain't had nothing to do with. She just fucked up. That's all.
No, it was the troll farms. They did it.
Yeah,
That was it.
It was, and when you really look at it, it comes down to it always goes back to Julian Assange, doesn't it? Like you go to Julian Assange, he gets arrested, and then everything starts just. It's been like in everyone's faces the whole time. It's just it takes a second to start noticing sometimes, and
I also blame Bernie too, because he was like, "What about her emails, man?"
He should have if he pressed on those emails, but then we look back and we're like, because he still bows to the Democratic Party, and back then he definitely had a chance, but in 2020 I feel like it was just another episode. It was like a sequel that we were just wanting to believe, and I don't think we're not going to let that happen. We're not going to let that happen again.
I mean, yeah, Chris Hedges even said, I think he said several times a story where he was talking to Bernie and he said, why don't you just run independent? And he said, hey, he doesn't want to be another Ralph Nader, right?
Yeah.
Which is very telling in terms of the limitations. He has limitations of where he's willing to go because he needs to at least feel like he's in the club a little bit.
He doesn't want to be a lonely senator.
Hedges said that that whole concept there of that Bernie didn't want to take on the machine. Like Pelosi and Schumer are the money-driven part of the Democrats, and if you can't get rid of them, you're never getting power. I mean, that's why AOC has just become an absolute joke. I mean, I'm so disappointed the fact that we watched the documentaries of her running and her getting rid of the white privileged dinosaur and all that stuff. And it's just it's so disheartening, because the fact is that you're not taking on the dragon herself. Like Skeletor needs to go. And the only way that anything's going to happen inside our U.S. political system is if you get rid of Pelosi and get rid of McConnell. So get rid of Turkey Neck and get rid of Skeletor, and you've actually got possible chance of democracy again.
Exactly, but especially like someone like Nancy Pelosi, who she's been running unopposed, and when you have somebody like Shahid Buttar, for example, who's running against her, he can't even debate her. How is that not like totalitarian, or how is that not? The censorship's been there. Like the censorship, he's being blacked out, and he is a potential person who can talk to her, go head to head on any kind of issue that you want to, and then actually speaks for the people in that kind of sense. He's getting blacked out. There's the censorship has always been there. It's just been very we've just been very conditioned, and the only thing is, once you see it, can't unsee it. So
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Were you going to say anything else?
No, that was it.
I was just going to say, can you imagine her hitting the debate stage at all? I mean, she can hardly, when there's
She's
actual
super drunk.
scripted things for her to say, she could hardly
She
be
can't tear a
make
paper.
sense in what she's saying then. And yeah, when there's pen to paper there, she can look right on. She hardly knows what to say. And so I can only imagine if she's put in a situation where she has to respond just like that to somebody who is calling out her corrupt record as it is. Yeah, there's a reason why she is avoiding debates. She
Well, remember
can't
what
do
happened
that.
with Wolf Blitzer when he just kind of challenged her just a little bit, like about a year and a half ago. He got destroyed. Not destroyed in a debate way. He got destroyed in a, like, she just went ham on him, just pretty much just like make him bow. And I suspect that if you haven't debated in over 30 years, that you're a little bit rusty, and anyone who would be able to challenge you, like if they had like a decent like record in debates, like they don't even have to be a phenomenal. If you haven't practiced, you probably are pretty shitty at debates by now.
Not even if someone is just clever with smearing someone or just like, scrutinizing, like, what is she going to do? She can't run away from a debate. I mean, she can, but that looks, like it's easier for you to sort of just be like, all right, this is a 5 minutes of grilling. I'm just going to like filibuster and then we're out. Right.
I mean, she did run away from the protesters who were, I think it was it was a group of immigrants, I believe, and they were trying to talk about like education and immigrant rights, and she was like, I forget exactly what she said, but like they were like just what did they say? Like they're like, we're not dreamers, or like I forget exactly what they were saying, but then she was like, all right, since you guys don't want to like hear me, I just leave, and she left.
But that's so
Probably did
indicative
something
of
like
like
this
the
with her
video.
hand.
It also just encapsulates everything we were looking at earlier with Michelle Wu and everything. Like you see like the way they act. They'll overblow the whole situation, make it seem like you offended them, and then walk off. Actually, they're the ones being egregious because they're just they're keeping the status quo and trying to deny your human rights and economic rights.
And they'll use loaded terms like harassment.
Exactly.
Right?
They'll use loaded terms for harassment to make the media go, and the media is just going to grasp onto that like it's sensation. The media is sensationalist as hell. So it's just, they know they all of them are being trained in that kind of way to be just always avoid the issue, always go around it. And if someone says something that's even remotely has to do with the word woman, black person, LGBTQ, anything like that, then you just blow up and just make it about that. Like, even when it doesn't have anything to do with it. And not to say that identity politics doesn't have has a place in politics, but the way the Democrats use it is just egregious. But I want to let me play this video real fast, and we will continue on with the conversation.
Critical former RT contributor C. Ventura wouldn't have been permitted by the Kremlin to stay on air. On the other hand, seeing an American company vaporize 6 years of interviews having nothing to do with Russia shows space for voices like his continues to shrink in the West. In this sense, he represents a kind of person we'll be seeing more of in the future, caught between a censorship rock and a hard place, an outcast in domestic and foreign media systems. You can find Chris's work on Substack now at the Chris Hedges Report, and some of the On Contact shows that were reposted by independent accounts remain up. The launch of the new site has gone very well, but he warns that no place in media is safe now. They'll shut down Substack, I absolutely know. Either that, or they'll create a way that sites like yours and mine won't be on it, he says. More from Chris on censorship, RT, Ukraine, and other issues. Taibbi. What happened with YouTube? Hedges. My entire archive of shows from On Contact was taken down. I was in London last week for Julian Assange. I was supposed to be a guest at the wedding, but then the prison didn't let me in, of course. When I came back, I got a text from a friend of mine, with whom I'd done a half-hour show, about a girlfriend who'd overdosed on fentanyl. And because I knew him, my interview with him is quite a powerful segment, and he said, the show doesn't exist anymore. Then I checked, and nothing exists. The RT On Contact website is still up, but everything on YouTube is gone, and people watched it on YouTube. Some of that stuff had hundreds of thousands of views. Taibbi. This two-step process feels like a backdoor way of getting rid of unorthodox voices. In other words, weren't you on RT in the first place because you'd been bounced out for opposing the war in Iraq? Now, because of your association with RT, you're off YouTube. Is this a way to get at not just people connected with Russians, but people with unpopular views generally? Hedges. Yeah, That's how it works. They push you to the margins and then they demonize those spaces on the margins. This has long been the habit of the dominant ruling elites. So for instance, Robert Scheer, whose website I write for, ScheerPost, and of course, we were all fired from Truthdig. This is just a never-ending saga. But he ran Ramparts. I think it was Spiro Agnew said, "It's a magazine with a bomb in every issue. We could never get advertisers." So they push you into a space that they then demonize, and then use it as an excuse to shut you down. But they've already, in essence, created the space in which you exist. I have a couple strikes against me. One, I was pushed out of the New York Times because I spent so many years in the Middle East and many years in Gaza. And of course, I was the Middle East bureau chief for the New York Times. I'm very outspoken about Israel, and I'm a very strong supporter of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, which alone is enough. I just saw my friend, Cornel West, denied tenure at Harvard over this. And I'm also a fierce critic, as you are, of the Democratic Party. Those are all flags that will get you locked out of even the quote-unquote liberal media, like MSNBC. Taibbi, this freeze out led to your tenure at RT? Hedges, I've been marginalized for a long time because of those issues. RT gave me space, and I took it. But it wasn't a show about Russia. We never did a show on Russia. The irony is that, in fact, the very few times Putin was mentioned, he was not described in flattering terms. It was as an autocrat. There was one show where Syria came up, and Russian war crimes. So there was nothing on the show, ever, that was in any way flattering to the Putin regime. But the point of the show was, of course, critiquing and looking at our own society. And that was the problem. It was a very wonky show. It was mostly about books. I was very conscientious about reading books, because as a writer, I don't like it when people interview me and never read my books. The last few shows, it was Nathaniel Philbrick on his book on Washington, Kai Bird on his biography of Jimmy Carter, and then also his brilliant biography of J. Robert Oppenheimer. I did a show on the 100th anniversary of the publication of James Joyce's Ulysses with a Joyce scholar from Trinity College, Dublin. A biography of Susan Sontag by Benjamin Moser, and then very high-powered, thoughtful social critics Cornel West, Tariq Ali, Noam Chomsky, Wendy Brown from UCLA, Naomi Wolf, Slavoj Žižek. It was the kind of show that should have been on public broadcasting, if we had a functioning public broadcasting system. Probably run at like 1 a.m. or something. I used to work for NPR, covered the Falklands War for NPR, Buenos Aires. But of course, public broadcasting has been destroyed. Taibbi.
Yeah, so as we can see on that, like, he's just talking about the fact that like everything got erased and the fact that that we have no real like place for it to go, and RT was like one of the only places that we were able to go to see like voices like that. And one of the only reasons that it was attacked was mainly because it gave voices to people who were pushed out on the margins. Anybody have anything to say about like add to that or anything?
I mean, I think it just shows.
Go ahead, Andrew.
80s. Oh, I was just going to say real quick. I mean, I think it just shows, the fact that Chris Hedges and other people who were on there. I think even Jesse Ventura was saying like they faulted Russia on many different things all the time, which just shows how you're on a Russian network and it's not like they were constrained as to what they were going to say. So it's ridiculous to kind of make that assertion when it's so much clearer, like on places like CNN, where there are places they cannot go. And so, that's all I really have to say about that.
My question is, or not question, I guess my comment would be, like, you look at a Jesse Ventura, you look at a Phil Donahue, how many fucking billions of dollars did those people make for your Western media and your Western hypocrisy? Like, Ventura was the governor of Minnesota, right? Like, the guy was a freaking rock star. I mean, don't even talk about the WWE stuff or his wrestling stuff. I mean, shit, he was in Predator. Like, he was Schwartz. Like, he was huge in the freaking 80s.
There's a couple of
and Phil
governors that came out of
Donahue,
that movie.
there wasn't a day that guy wasn't on TV. Like, he was the Oprah of my era. And just because he spoke out against the system, they fucking muted him. And
they paid him like. They paid Jesse Ventura like he was about to get like a prime time spot, like MSNBC show, and they paid him $10 million. It said to like just go away.
I mean, for me being a wrestling fan, Jesse Ventura, his biggest thing is the fact that the WWE hates him. Vince McMahon hates him because he tried to unionize them. And that was all based on, and I mean, who else tried to do that? Andrew Yang. That was one of his freaking running things, even though Linda McMahon was part of the Trump freaking table there running the small business sector. He took on the McMahons and said, I'm going to come after the WWE because you have this whole thing that they're independent contractors, but sure as shit, as someone who's worked with wrestlers and sports entertainers throughout my life, you can't get anything if they're under contract with the WWE. That Vince has got them locked, stock, and barrel from brand to everything. So these poor people are stuck under a contract. I mean, some of them, if you're a star, yeah, you're like a Kevin Owens, you just signed for $3 million a year. Yes, you're doing great for your family, but other ones that are only being used on a weekly basis, they're making peanuts because there is no actual salary there. They're just under contract. And with Vince McMahon and using it being a public entity, he can cut anyone at any time, and he's done it. He's taken stars, guys that were making him hundreds of millions of dollars throughout their career, and just threw them in the fucking garbage because he's got that system. So the fact that an Andrew Yang comes after him, supposedly, I mean, just pure Democratic bullshit that we're going to go after these companies, and then when push comes to shove, where the hell are they?
Go ahead, Ludin.
All right. And then just one quick thing. If Russia Today or RT is a Russian TV station, and they criticize Russia from time to time, it says a lot that they would keep the network open while America would go out of its way to censor and remove it, as well as other Western countries, just for speaking out against things over here. But they're supposed to be like the American brand of
freedom of speech.
So it's like, so which one is the authoritarian? The person the country that owns the station but lets them criticize them, or the country that lets a subsidiary of that same news station not criticize them?
Yeah.
But capitalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those. I was going to say just one thing that those folks over there. Well, shit, I done forgot. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, so I guess before we wrap it up, I'll just one last thing I want to say is that I think I've heard this from Jesse Ventura a couple of times, right? And he said he has actually met Putin one time when he was in Russia, and Putin said to him, he said, "You know what? Say whatever you want to say, right? I don't care." Something along those lines, right? I want you to be able to say whatever you feel is necessary to say, right? Now, I realize that's Jesse Ventura, and that's just one source, and I just have Jesse's Ventura word. However, based on Jesse Ventura's actions, he is somebody who does seem to have integrity, who I would be willing to take his word for. He has a lot more integrity than the people who are censoring him himself, right? So, although, like I said, I am no Putin apologist. I do not, Putin, as many people have said, he's very anti-communist. But I think it's important just to kind of bring that in there and just, if people are ever wondering if the people on RT were compromised, certain things that I've seen seem to suggest otherwise, that they were not. And so on that note, maybe
they had a lot of voices. They had some people who just like were saying some stupid shit.
Right.
And then they had people who were just like, it was every day. It literally was like just a channel.
They would cover just the whole spectrum, right? From left to right.
But we're not smart enough to make those decisions for ourselves as citizens.
Exactly.
We have to have a benevolent government that looks out for us and then tells us what to do because they care about us.
Yeah. I think there was like one thing that RT had. They went really into like 5G and stuff. Yeah. I don't know.
Oh, sorry, Austin. What were you going to say?
I was going to say something to think about, or something I find interesting is third largest political party in Russia is the Communist Party of Russia. So that is something to think about. Good luck, fellas.
Controlled or not, I doubt that communism is a scare word in Russia. Like, as far like we can't there's an act, the 1954, I think, Communist Act, and it prevents communists from holding office in the United States. And I'm sure there might be legislation in Russia, but at least they're not to the point where you can't even say the word.
Yeah.
Well,
Exactly.
I support socialism, so they can all
Exactly.
eat my ass.
Exactly.
They are coming for you, Austin. They are on their way. Yeah, so I guess as we wrap up, maybe we'll just go around and people can just say what they have coming up, and then we can maybe say this would be a good time for us to collectively say what we have coming up. Should we say that yet? Okay, cool.
Yes, I believe.
Austin, you go first, and then we'll make our way to the right, and then to the left to the right.
All right, left to the right. I'm Austin, doing professional lapses. My buddy, there we go, that way. One of my partners on the show. We're trying to do a show this Sunday. Check us out on Sundays. We talk about the rest of the world, try to veer away from the United States as much as it is a unipolar world in some shape, form, or fashion. My bro Luden.
Yeah, so I'm Luden. You can find me on Twitter at Luden Shazo. Yeah, like Austin said, I'm part of the Professional Lapses. And we'll try to do a show this weekend. I believe, what was the topic again?
I don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna have to revisit that, but just tune in at some point this weekend. Yeah, that's it. Z.
Hey, yeah, so I'm just busy writing some scripts for the next Revolutionary Reader, because I decided that I wanted to take it in a different direction, and I wasn't happy with the way that it was being done before. So I want to try to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to see if this experimental project comes to fruition in the next couple weeks or days. And I have some interviews coming up. We're going to be interviewing Lee Camp again on Tuesday, and we are also going to be interviewing the lovely Eleanor Goldfield, who is Lee Camp's partner, and she also hosts Common Censored with him. So we shall be doing that when we rescheduled her, because that's actually what we had planned tonight, but we had a little bit of miscommunication via email. So tune in.
So it's ADC, Angry Dad Canada. We just put the bio. All things ADC is sleek.bios/ADC. Go to ballergear.ca. We've got a huge fundraiser going on for boots on the ground harm reduction here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And you can become a radical harm reduction activist. Buy the merchandise. All net proceeds go to the BOGHRYEG. And we got a huge fundraiser coming up. We don't know the charity. There's going to be the charity of the month. Going to utilize some of those web domains that I purchased a long time ago. So I purchased humanright.ca. It's going to be used for that charity coming up. It's Chad Jeter, former pro footballer, college footballer, now member of the American Armed Forces, is going to provide me with charity, and we're going to raise some funds, and we're going to re-release his Be the Change design. I showed a sneak peek to some of the members here. They seem to like it, so we'll have that stuff out as of April 1st. Go to ballergear.ca or humanright.ca. And then you can follow me on Twitter, Left White North, or on TikTok at Angry Dad Canada.
Awesome, great. And so for me, so you can catch me Mondays at 9:30 on Postmortem Breakdown on Joy's channel, and catch me on here for some panels. And I will definitely be starting some sort of show soon on here as well. Just, trying to, align, put all my ducks in a row and align everything, as it could be tough. But we do have a little bit of a collaborative thing that we're all going to be doing. Yeah, collaborative thing next month. So we will be doing a 420 summit, essentially. So it's going to be called 420 Summit, basically talking about cannabis and all the different aspects of cannabis when it comes to the legalization, the benefits of it, the history of it, and the history of the war on drugs. And, we're hoping to get a good amount of people that are experts in different range of topics talking about it on 420 for a good amount of time. So that is something we are really looking forward to, and you will be hearing more of as we get closer to that time. But on that note, thank you for coming out and seeing us, everyone. It's really kind of exciting as we start this kind of new channel and building up an audience. And yeah, look for us on here on the People's Voice Network on this YouTube channel. Find us on Twitter as well. Like and subscribe, please. And follow us on Twitter as well.
And if you like what we did here, consider supporting independent media and becoming a patron on Patreon at peoplesvoicemerch.com.
Hell yeah. All right.
I didn't mean .com. I meant to say at People's Voice merch on Patreon.com. Yeah.
There's a link tree on if you go to our Twitter, follow us on Twitter. There's the link tree website that has all the links to everything TVN. So just go there. It's easy. We've got it on the Sleek bio as well, right at the bottom of the page. So you go ADC, you can get the PVN. All that, we're going to have merch coming at some point. But yeah, it's going to be passing the Dutchie on Weed Wednesday. So we look forward to seeing you guys there.
All right. Peace out, everyone.